Hi, welcome to the Home Improvement Podcast, Season 3, Episode 7. No, 6. Excuse
sure?
me.
Don't start the 6-7 thing.
I know. Yeah, I know, right? Episode 6. Today I am joined with Matt. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi. Most of you will know Matt as my business partner and our operations director at Lima Kitchens. But on the lead up to Christmas, we had to be all hands on deck, and we're just going to talk about a little bit around what we were doing on that lead up to Christmas. The kind of rush that everyone wants to show off their kitchen for Christmas and have everything kind of as perfect as possible, depending what your perception of perfect is, and how we always find at the end of the year, come December, anyone who's had a little niggle through the year all comes back.
That's it. Everybody historically also wants everything in order for Christmas.
Yeah, so we've got our order book. We've got the delayed builds that have put extra pressure on us. We've got little remedials where, you know, their kids hit the door with a frying pan or something and that needs replacing. So all of these little things that kind of build up and the challenges we end up kind of encountering. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what you were doing on the kind of weeks leading up to our Christmas closure. So
I had to make a call, and that call was that I became also a kitchen fitter for a couple of weeks. The lead up to Christmas.
Lead up to kitchen.
Kitchenmas. So it was a bit of a frantic couple of weeks, getting things complete. But yeah, needs must. And it was, really satisfying to get my hands on things for a change. It's been a good lead up to Christmas.
Yeah, I would like to highlight it's not the first kitchen that Matt's installed. It's not as if one of our poor clients has been a guinea pig unknowing. But it has been a while. I'd definitely say you were probably a little bit rusty.
A little bit rusty. Fortunately, my tools weren't, so it was good.
Yeah, so I think what was really interesting about the job that you particularly chose to take on was that it was extra challenging in that it was a handleless kitchen with all of the rails.
That's it.
Which is a lot more labour intensive, requires a different kind of mindset with some of those products. So it's not all chipboard or timber or MDF that you're working with. There's also aluminium that kind of comes into play there as well, and other things to consider.
Some challenges, plus some additional things to consider and cut out for. We had a fuse board in the kitchen, which was a test. And what else? Boiler that was in the wrong place. Despite clear plans, that was a bit of a story. But yes, fortunately, the good fella came back and put it in the right place and almost went through some water pipes. But fortunately, he was cautious and found them, and we found a solution. So the result was excellent.
Yeah. So a lot of our kitchens we install ourselves. Sometimes we have builders install them, and we find that their installers can find some surprises between some of the custom products that we have, some of the intricate details, some of the mechanisms. And you've obviously very recently worked with some of these. So what kind of things would you now speak to with a client when they're looking to use some of these products with someone who isn't familiar with our product? Are there any kind of tips that you would highlight or areas that you would highlight for them to kind of consider and make sure the fitter's comfortable with beforehand?
I think the biggest and best advice that I can give about installing a kitchen is how little things earlier on have a knock-on effect as you go through the installation. I feel like a bit of a stock record with that one because we talk about this a lot at work in all sorts of elements. But it's a bit like the butterfly effect. You know, a little thing earlier on has a knock-on effect later on. And where this might be apparent is getting those units level getting them in the right position in the first place.
This is something we come across all the time when we, or frequently, if we're doing a worktop for someone who's had an external installer fit the units, level corrections being required.
Corrections, that's it. And, in some extreme circumstances to an extreme difference. And it's quite perturbing when you think that they were installing a kitchen for someone and getting paid for it. But in general, it's a good practice to sort of get everything in nice and square and as true as you possibly can, and spending that a little bit extra time getting it level so that when you then sort of come further down the line, everything else sort of fits into place more seamlessly.
So what are some of those issues that would occur if you don't invest that time in the kind of leveling? What are those knock-on effects? Could you highlight some?
So the areas that tend to be affected, the worktop one, as we've already mentioned, so they can accommodate that to a degree. They're used to having to deal with levels because they want it in to a point of trueness that is difficult to comprehend. It's a very, very much a stone sort of thing. It needs to be really level.
Stone doesn't flex.
Stone, of course, does have a bit of flex in it, but still you don't want your worktop to be flexing. So getting that in nice and true, and the more level the units are, the better that will be. But then also the doors to the units, the drawers, they all have adjustment. And you can correct little problems with them, but they're designed to correct little problems, not big ones. So again, having those units in nice and true, it makes it better for the doors and the drawers, and the end result will be much more satisfying.
Some of those adjustments, you say problems, and not necessarily problems within installation either. So a problem could be that you've got a 50 kilo weight drawer runner and you've got a drawer box on there which reduces the weight for the runners, the drawer front, and then you put 40 kilos in there. So that adjustment is also there to make sure that those lines can be adjusted depending on the weight. So sometimes we'll find that if someone's put a lot of Le Creuset, for example, into a drawer, that they just need to be tweaked a little bit so that they're in line with the rest of the kitchen. So you need to be able to leave tolerance for that as well, which I don't think people who aren't used to fitting kitchens appreciate as well.
I don't think that the modern drawer boxes are as badly affected perhaps as the older ones. Certainly there is a chance that things will go out of alignment with a lot of weight in them. But it's not. I don't think it's nearly as bad as it used to be with the modern products that we're using and the construction that we're putting together.
But that's for us. Not all kitchens are using the same drawer boxes. So potentially if someone is using a product which has been a little bit more budget conscious, these things could still occur. So it is a consideration in the installation.
100%. It's and that's, like you say, that's part of the reason why adjustment is there. So you can correct these things.
Yeah. And what's been kind of the learning points for you from kind of undertaking an installation after kind of the break in doing this?
Having that opportunity to spend some time installing, it's definitely shedded some light on the frustrations that kitchen fitters sometimes experience, and it certainly helps to relate to their point of view a bit. We're there supporting our installers all the time anyway. But it's good to really feel it from their perspective, and certainly having to sort of make modifications, it's quite time consuming. So it's something that very much is worth the time to plan out and consider in advance as much as possible.
And modifications in a client's home, I think, is often underappreciated into that time and the considerations. So if there are lots of custom items or lots of quirks within the property, all of these things are going to require a bit more attention and a bit more time. So when perhaps one company is saying, oh no, we're going to get this done within 2 weeks, maybe they're not necessarily considering everything, or maybe there are less things that are specific to your property as opposed to kind of something more standard that they're perhaps building off the walls instead. There's other things to kind of consider with that as well. Mm-hmm. On the lead up to Christmas, I managed to visit site and help out a little bit, and it was quite interesting to see the process and see that drilling a couple of holes in a door doesn't actually take 2 minutes. And people are like, oh, it's a 2-minute job, but it's not literally. And I think sometimes I take that as a literal a kind of measure of time, when actually it might take 10 minutes because you want to measure, you want to check, you want to measure again, you get it all lined up.
That's it.
You check there are no damages. You then screw on the hinge, like push the hinges on and attach it. So that process feels like a 2-minute job, but in fact, if you've got 50 fronts to put on and each of those are taking 10 minutes, that's a lot of time that's taken in just that kind of job. And if you're not taking the care in drilling those hinge holes, for us, because we have such a variety of product and we do that in a client's home, that could adjust with those affect those alignments as well. So that was really interesting to see from a designer's kind of point of view as well. And also, I was not fit in a kitchen. I'm not going to claim to be doing that.
Don't undersell yourself.
But even small things like the quality check-in, the clearing up, being able to inspect things on the level that I was able to, and then pull up some of the things that I saw.
It makes a big difference.
Just understanding those reasons and understanding those challenges in the moment. I'm the first to admit that I'm not very good at reaching the correct decision quickly. I am definitely someone who needs to sleep on it. But in those scenarios, you have to be able to think logically, pragmatically, calmly, and reach the right answer really on, which again is something that I don't think people really appreciate. And a lot of it comes with experience as well. And it's very easy for it to kind of throw out the window when you have got pressures, when you know you need to go back to replace that dishwasher door that was damaged. You also need to pop to this other place and this other place to finish it off, but you also need to complete the job. So kind of seeing those pressures and demands and the constant messages for updates as well. And that was really eye-opening for me.
I think it's all eye-opening, isn't it? And it's all worthwhile to get that experience and to help and to get the rewards of helping. And it's a new experience in some respects, and or a different one at the very least. So
I think someone said to me it sounded a bit like Undercover Boss, except for we weren't undercover. They suggested somewhere I could go buy a beard and prosthetics. Just to make it really feel like undercover.
I did wonder about getting the Santa suit out, actually, as we're basically, we're delivering things for Christmas, but I never got into it.
More of an elf.
Might have been impractical for, for cutting things and stuff, to have extra bits hanging dangling.
Beard in the chop saw is definitely a health and safety risk.
Absolutely. Can you imagine?
Are there, if someone is looking to kind of do a installation themselves, there are areas where it becomes a bit more tricky. Would there be areas that you think people should always look to outsource unless it's something they're experienced in?
The worktops are always a more of an outsourced thing. Stone cutting is not an easy task. So I think that's pretty much a given in most of the cases. But there are other work surfaces that people do perhaps take on because they're a bit more viable to work with. But that's still a tough thing to get right. You definitely could do with a bit of experience with various different tools to be able to do a good job on a lot of worktops. whether it's timber or laminate, all these different
Acrylic.
services. Yeah, there are sort of DIY-ish type of acrylic tops and things, but they're still, not the easiest thing to do. I did the acrylic tops in a couple of my bathrooms. I think I did okay, but it was difficult. It was a difficult thing to get a nice finish on. So
I'll give you some credit in that I didn't realise you'd fitted those. So
bless
there
you.
we go. So moving on to this year, 2026, we've obviously got some really big projects booked in and kind of undertaken. I think that currently with the way things are looking for us, we're probably set to be doing larger projects at this point in time for the foreseeable future, and maybe a few less. Do you think that you're going to continue trying to get involved and be out and working on installations a bit more, and how kind of seeing some of those challenges firsthand? And how do you think that will change the way you handle things in terms of the operations?
I think that I'd be very keen to spend a lot more time on site as we've sort of moved on, and I've kind of almost taken a step back away from that and let other people do it. My current feeling is to get more involved with that and to be a bit more hands-on. How much hands-on will really depend, but to being involved and more actively involved is certainly something that I think is not just appealing to me, but also I think really worthwhile. To make sure that things are running the way that we want them to be, frankly.
Also, I think the learning opportunities are there, and one of the things we encourage people to do, so designers, we often encourage our designers to go out and remove a kitchen. So one of their projects it can be tricky to get them to do this. I mean, a lot of them have fancy nails. So you need to get the timing right. But getting members of our team involved with the installation so that they can see the textbook, they can hear the words, and they can physically kind of see how it goes together. And for more of the team to have that visualization and experience, I think is something that has been refreshed in my mind about these kind of tasks. And I think that over the coming year, it'd be really good to get more of the team kind of involved with that. And I'm not saying that they're going to be the ones removing walls and putting in steels and fitting your kitchen, but being there to witness and observe and see those challenges and be able to talk about them with clients a bit more confidently, with more complete answers, and more of a first-hand experience. I think that really is priceless for clients as well.
It's very true for clients as well, but definitely invaluable for the staff to sort of see and be there with it happening in front of them. It's such a great learning curve. Yes, like you say, in the past, they've been out there, they've done rip-outs as best as they can.
Last summer, we did a lot of rip-outs, a lot of floor lifts, and I could tell you my knees and my back are not made for floor lifts.
That was a tough period of time doing those works. But again, rewarding to be part and involved with it. And the next stage is to be involved in the bit where it goes back in and finishes off all looking lovely again.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Again, it's been good to kind of have a chat and learn a little bit more about installation and recap on last year as we head into this year and get refocused. So I hope some of you found that useful. And if you've got any questions relating to that, we're always open. So comment or drop us a message as ever. If we can't answer, we'll always help to aim to point you in the right direction. I think that's the right thing that I'm trying to say there.
Got there eventually.
So yeah, get in touch, and if you've got specific questions, ask, and we'll do our best to help. Thank you, and don't forget to like, share, comment, and follow. See you again soon.
See you soon.